Hello students. So far in this course, we have used the thermodynamic principles to understand the behavior of simple systems like ideal gases, ideal solutions or real solutions in the range of low concentration. In today's lecture, we are going to see how we can use the very same thermodynamic principles to understand energy flow in our own body. So, the topic of today's lecture is storage and extraction of energy using biological fuels. Although bioenergetics or biothermodynamics is a very vast subject which is dealt with very high end methods of experiments, this lecture is not supposed to be really a biothermodynamics course or even a detailed discussion of bioenergetics. Instead, what I am going to do is, I am going to show you a summary of energy flow in our body which utilizes biological fuels like food. So, here is a diagram of flow of energy in living organism. So, as you know that solar energy through photosynthesis gives us organic compounds which we identify with our food of belonging to the different groups, and they can be carbohydrates, fats and proteins which we obtain either from plant sources or by taking other sources of meat through which we once again get the same food. Now, therefore, the storage of energy from sun to the food compounds, these are primarily coming through photosynthesis, and therefore, the end product of this process is whatever we use as food. They may be synthesized by the plants through photosynthesis or by in the food chain by small herbivores taking these plants and converting them to their own body mass, which in turn are taken by the carnivores. Okay. Now, in today's lecture, we are going to focus on the energy storage and estimation of the different extent of energy storage in the different food groups, and we will also have a look at how some of the breakdown of some of these food compounds can initiate the transfer of energy down this very complicated chain of processes which are known as the metabolism. In whatever I am going to discuss today, if you want to really read up the details of it, you can go back and refer to this book by Atkins and Paula, which is Physical Chemistry for the Life Sciences, and but I will restrict myself to discussing some very fundamental aspects of how energy is stored and to what extent it is stored in our food. And of course, in the metabolism there are important species such as the NADH or ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, which are also high energy compounds which basically take the energy and ensure that the stored energy in food is supplied to doing a lot of metabolic processes or maintaining the body temperature and then rejecting some of this energy as heat in the surroundings. So, let us start by looking at the thermochemical properties of biological fuels. So, the thermodynamic quantity that is used to describe the thermochemical property of a biological fuel is the standard enthalpy of combustion. So, when I am talking about this particular quantity, I am referring to the standard change in enthalpy upon combustion per mole of the combustible substance. So, you will take something like, let us say, glucose and burn it using oxygen, then the change in enthalpy per mole of glucose is the quantity which refers to the standard enthalpy of combustion of glucose. So, here is the example that I was talking about. 1 mole of glucose reacts with 6 moles of oxygen, producing 6 moles of carbon dioxide and 6 moles of water. Therefore, the associated change in enthalpy under standard conditions here is found to be about minus 2800 kilojoules per mole, and this tells us how much energy was stored in this particular food group, which is glucose, this particular organic compound glucose, and 1 mole of it. Okay. Sometimes when you compare the energy content of a particular organic compound, instead of standard enthalpy of combustion, for the sake of comparison, one uses what is known as a specific enthalpy, which gives you a ratio of the standard enthalpy of combustion and the molecular weight of the organic compound that we are talking about. So, here I have listed for you the specific enthalpy of glucose, usual complex carbohydrates or proteins, and fat. Therefore, as you see that combustion or oxidation of 1 mole of glucose, 1 gram of glucose gives you 16 kilojoules of energy. Similarly, if you have some complex carbohydrate, it can be sucrose or some more complex molecules in the carbohydrate group, or some simple proteins, you get almost an equivalent amount of specific enthalpy. But if you look at the amount of energy available by the combustion of fat, it is nearly 2 times, more than 2 times, it is 38 kilojoules per gram. Now, we are in the real world, we are used to looking at the amount of energy available by burning some of the fossil fuels, and one such value is that of isooctane. So, if I look at the specific enthalpy of isooctane, I find that that number is 48 kilojoules per gram. So, as you understand that if you want to carry out your basic metabolic processes, you require a combination of all these organic molecules, and it is through the burning of the or oxidation of these different organic molecules that we obtain energy to perform our daily work. Now, moving forward, I would like to highlight once again that the oxidation of the organic molecules provides us with energy to perform work, to carry out basic metabolic processes, and a part of it is also discarded as heat. And it is this process that maintains our body temperature. For example, if you are using up a lot of the food that you have eaten, and then there is a lot of oxidation and a lot of heat is generated, then what happens is your body temperature will go up. Okay? And then what happens is the body tries to pump the blood near to the cells which are very close to the skin, and we start perspiring. Then one can dissipate the excess energy through perspiration, and this is how this is one of the major mechanisms of discarding of excess energy as heat. Now, let us have a quick simple calculation to find out how much heat is removed from the human body through the evaporation of 1 liter of water. Now, as you see that you do not really perspire 1 liter of water usually. Let us say that somebody is undergoing a vigorous exercise in a humid weather, and therefore, they are sweating a lot, and the amount of water they have lost is 1 liter. So, I would like to know the amount of heat that has been removed from the human body through such process. Now, in order to estimate this, we will require some standard data, which we can find from the standard tables of thermodynamics. So, for water we know that the standard enthalpy of vaporization is plus 44 kilojoules per mole. I also know that the molecular weight of water is 18 grams per mole, and the mass density, that is the weight of the or mass of water per liter, is 10 cube gram per liter. With this information, I first find out that what is the mass of 1 liter of water, that is 1000 gram, and in 1000 gram how many moles of water are present? Obviously, 1000 by 18 moles are present in 1 liter of water. Now, I know that the enthalpy of vaporization under standard conditions is 44 kilojoules per mole. Therefore, when you are talking about n moles of water, then the net amount of heat that is required for this evaporation would be n into the standard enthalpy of vaporization, and that is given by, therefore, this is a value of n, 1000 divided by 18 multiplied by 44 kilojoules per mole. That gives you that the amount of heat that will be removed from the body is 2.4 megajoules. So, that is a large amount of heat, and that eventually would go towards cooling down of the human body in the process of evaporation. But going beyond this kind of simple estimates, we can also think of the extraction of energy by the oxidation of glucose, which is an essential metabolic process, and in our body this oxidation process can have more than one outcome. First of all, when you are looking at oxidation of glucose in cells with plentiful supply of oxygen, you have a complete oxidation of glucose into carbon dioxide, as I was showing in the previous slide. But if it so happens that somebody is undergoing a vigorous session of exercise, and then the muscle cells are deprived of oxygen, under those conditions the oxidation of glucose proceeds through a pathway which is known as glycolysis, and then instead of the complete oxidation of carbon dioxide, glucose undergoes a partial oxidation producing lactic acid. And in some other cases, it can also produce ethanol by partial oxidation. As you see that there are different metabolic conditions under which these three products are formed, then the question that we can pose here is it possible to use standard thermodynamic data to estimate the heat released along each of these pathways of glucose oxidation? Let us next take up this exercise. For this, once again, I will use the available thermodynamic data on the enthalpy of combustion under standard condition. So, for the complete oxidation of glucose, whereby 1 mole of glucose reacts with 6 moles of oxygen producing 6 moles of carbon dioxide, that value of standard enthalpy of combustion is available. However, since this takes place under physiological conditions, the exact heat of combustion is not available with us, and we are trying to find out the reaction enthalpy when 1 mole of glucose is converted to 2 moles of lactic acid. So, again we look up the thermodynamic data table and find that when lactic acid undergoes oxidation, 1 mole of lactic acid reacts with 3 moles of oxygen, producing 3 moles of carbon dioxide and 3 moles of water, and the related standard enthalpy of combustion is available to us. So, we are going to use these two informations and estimate the standard enthalpy of conversion during glycolysis. But as you see that here I cannot use these two equations directly, rather what I will do is I will to find the change in enthalpy during this reaction, I will use the first reaction as it is, but then the second reaction what I will do is I will multiply both sides by 2. Thereby now I will have 2 moles of lactic acid reacting with 6 moles of oxygen, giving me 6 moles of carbon dioxide plus 6 moles of H2O. Then I would say that change in enthalpy during this reaction would be 2 into 1344 kilojoules per mole, which I knew to start with, and therefore, the reaction enthalpy for this reaction is minus 2688 kilojoules per mole. And with this these two data, I can now subtract the second equation from the first equation. So, what do I have? The oxygen terms from the left hand side, they cancel out. The carbon dioxide terms as well as the water terms cancel out from the right hand side, and therefore, what I have as the net reaction is 1 mole of glucose transforming to 2 moles of lactic acid, and the associated reaction enthalpy under standard condition would be given by the first value plus the second value, and here we find that delta H naught is minus 120 kilojoules per mole. So, what we have got here is the desired reaction enthalpy when 1 mole of glucose is transferred to is converted to 2 moles of lactic acid along the glycolytic pathway, and we note that only 4% of the enthalpy of combustion of glucose has been produced along the glycolysis pathway. So, let us next look at the energetics when we follow the pathway of conversion of glucose in ethanol. We will again follow the same type of argument. We will use the same information that we have for the combustion of 1 mole of glucose and the associated standard enthalpy of combustion. But now we are going to look at the combustion data of 1 mole of ethanol with 3 moles of oxygen, giving 2 moles of carbon dioxide and 3 moles of water. And this data is available from the literature. But before I can look into the conversion of glucose into ethanol, I have to once again find out the appropriate reaction that would correspond to the conversion of 2 moles of ethanol reacting with 6 moles of oxygen, giving me 4 moles of carbon dioxide and 6 moles of H2O. So, all I have done is I have multiplied both sides of this equation with 2. Accordingly, the standard reaction enthalpy of this reaction is now going to be the original value multiplied by 2, which is given by minus 2736 kilojoules per mole. So, now what we do is we look for the net cell reaction, not cell, the net reaction. So, I subtract the second equation from the first, and I have these two terms cancelling out, and I have here 2 moles of carbon dioxide remaining. This says that 1 mole of glucose will be converted to 2 moles of ethanol and 2 moles of carbon dioxide, and the standard change in enthalpy with this particular reaction is minus 72 kilojoules per mole only. So, now if we compare the amount of energy available through the oxidation of glucose, we find that when it gets transformed into ethanol, only 2.5% of the enthalpy of the combustion of glucose is available for use in the metabolism. Therefore, what we conclude from here is as follows: full oxidation of glucose is it would produce more energy for doing work. But as you understand that under strenuous circumstances such as the unavailability of sufficient oxygen in the muscle cells, glucose can undergo partial oxidation to provide the additional heat requirement, as you see in the glycolytic pathway, where 1 mole of glucose produces 2 moles of lactic acid, but produces only 4% of the enthalpy of combustion of glucose. On the other hand, if it gets converted to ethanol under special circumstances, even lower amount of energy is released by this incomplete oxidation of glucose. Therefore, the ideal solution for providing optimum amount of energy to our body would be the complete oxidation of glucose. So, in today's lecture, we have seen that what is the amount of energy that is usually stored in the typical organic molecules which we consume as food. We found that the quantitative description comes from the use of the terms either the standard enthalpy of combustion or the specific enthalpy, which gives us that the maximum amount of energy is provided by the combustion of fats per gram. Then we also had a look at the amount of energy available through the oxidation of glucose under various circumstances, and we find that the maximum amount of energy is extracted when we have a full oxidation of glucose. As you understand that metabolism is a multi-component, multi-step, highly complex network of different such processes, and I have highlighted only a few representative ones which control the harvesting of energy from food and then utilizing them for doing some metabolic work through the breaking of the food group molecules like glucose and giving us different extents of energy contained within it along many different pathways. Thank you.